speaker is finished, the recording will be turned off for the rest of the meeting. With that, I'll hand it over to Penny. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. My name's Penny. I'm an addict. I'm here because I'm not all there, and don't think I'll ever will be. But I do believe this program has worked in some miraculous ways. You know, I came to Narcotics Anonymous after a lifetime, really, of using, and it got progressively worse, and I ended up in a caravan in Essex, and with two children that were very disturbed at the time by my addiction and the things that I were doing, you know, and I do believe that I had a higher power that was caring for me all that time, because I had carried a prayer book with me in my bag that was given to me by the vicar in Wimbledon, strangely enough. He was a really nice guy, and he was just so affable and approachable, and you know, I used to talk to him about prayer. This is before I got to NA, right? But they did give me this book. It was called Short Prayers for the Long Day, and I just carried it with me, and it covered everything. And you know, prayer for me was like I'd be running out the door to school. Please look after me, you know. Whatever prayer was relevant for that time of day, but you know, I did have a belief that there was something. I had to give up religion to get the program. It was all too difficult. Apologise to anyone who has a religion that they follow. This is just my experience, and it was all too complicated. All the religions, I'd looked everywhere, Buddhism, Christianity, you know, the local church, and I'd always done yoga, and you know, I went to the Rasta church, tried growing dreadlocks, and well, and just had tangled hair, and you know, I wasn't really committed to that. You know, it's kind of because I was still questioning a lot of things, but I was looking for something. And when I got to NA, they told me, you know, you just get down on your knees and pray. You know, it's like, what? I can't do that. You know? I thought I had to go to church, or you know, go to yoga, or wherever it was, and I actually found that I heard this chat by a certain gangster bank robber when I was new, and he said that, you know, he got down on his knees because people had told him to, and his wife said to him, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm praying." And she said, you know, because he was the kind of guy that, like, you know, anybody said anything, you know, the violence was like, you know, get a piece of plank of wood and hit them around the head, you know, and it's like, and that really helped me, because I knew that, you know, that's something, because people said to me, "Do you get down on your knees and pray?" And I was like, looking around to see who was looking. My experience is that I've always done what's been suggested. The suggestions work. Get a sponsor. Go to meetings, 90 meetings in 90 days. Wasn't possible where I was in the caravan, but I got picked up a lot by people in Colchester. They had a car that ran, you know. The car is long gone, the phone had long gone. We didn't have mobiles in those days, and there I was, no money, no hope, everything went on drugs. And my son, I was talking to my son, I used to feel really guilty, and this is part of later steps, but it was like something I had a lot of shame about. It was what I'd done to the children, you know, dragging them away from civilization and living like we did. And he said to me, Mum, you know, I used to walk across the fields to school, you know, like a couple of miles. You know, kids don't get that these days, you know. They're locked up, they're kind of locked in their room with a mobile phone. And you know, he was giving me a lecture about screens this morning, but we won't go on about that, because he came to stay with me for the weekend. And I thought, why don't you work in your ACA programme? Anyway, he's 23 or 24 years clean. You know, my daughter found recovery. They've both got amazing lives these days. I do believe me. I mean, I've got 4 grandchildren, and I don't think I would have met them if I hadn't stayed clean. You know, my children were on course to, be bank robbers and working girls, and you know, that was where I was at the end of my using. And my sponsor, that was part of the Fellowship of Colchester, she had come from Australia and followed her. You know, we all have love addiction when we first get clean, you know. It's like, followed him from Australia. He came back, he got sent back to England because he didn't have a visa, and he was locked up and then extradited from Australia, and she couldn't bear to be without him, and so she followed him, and the rest is history. They did NA in Essex, and that meeting formed and grew bigger, you know. I worked the steps with her, and she was a lot younger than me, and I thought, what am I going to listen to you? What do you know about my life? I've been famous, I've been infamous, I've been around the world, I'm twice, and I've done this, and I've done that, and I've been married twice, and but she knew how to work the steps, and that's what I needed. I needed someone who knew how to work the steps and could guide me through them. So we didn't have the working guide then. We just did it sort of like ad hoc, as you do. You know, talk to a sponsor and you understand about being powerless. I have to say I am still really powerless today about everything. But I don't have to stay in that state. I've got a higher power that guides me through those the perils of addiction, because my understanding that I've got through working the steps, especially step 4 and 5, you know, the exact nature of my wrongs, and when I was reading my step 5, we did a step 3 on my knees, you know, on our knees together before we started, and when I was sharing, I had this sense of a presence that I understand was my higher power, and it quite shocked me. It wasn't just a theory anymore, it was real, it was really happening, and I understood by sharing, I just kept sharing the same thing over and over and over. I don't know if anybody relates to that. They've done the step 4 and step 5, you know, it's like, the insanity of it, you know. I just kept doing the same thing. I never realised that I was doing it. And listening to myself reading it was like, again, you know, I have listened to many step 4s since I sponsored a lot of people in, you know, my recovery, and it's always the same. It's like, and in fact, I got fired once for dozing off. I didn't doze off. I was like tranced out on this thing that she hit the ground running with her step 6 and got into a lot of anger and fired me. But having said that, she did come back to me. At some point, and I mean, this is, like, I've known her for a while, and, I mean, things like the stuff Ian does when he's driving people around, I did all that because there weren't any people to do it in Essex. And therapeutic value of one addict helping another, because, like, you have to be crazy to listen to some of the madness that goes on in our heads and our hearts. And, emotionally, I wasn't very well when I first got clean. I was not very well. And I'd been in a relationship with someone who was like 20 years younger than me. And, it was like, it was difficult for my kids, telling their friends he was her brother. And then the friends coming around and seeing us in bed, It wasn't quite. But that was the sort of thing that I am liable to do over and over again. I didn't get cured, right? I'm in recovery from a lot of stuff that I have done. The consequences have been quite enormous. I had I think when I was 13 years clean, I started, that whole thing blew up. I knew it was on the back burner, the thing about relationships, and it was like, it came up in this way that I got totally seduced by somebody who was very charismatic in recovery, had a wonderful aura, had very similar things going on in his life to me, and it proved to be like one of those things where it was like ended up like chasing the coke, just like it never get there, you never get. Anyway, don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but we were talking in the car, about it's like that film when he's got his nose through the table and a pile of coke. I was like that with a pile of smack, and I could not stop. I just don't know how, and it wasn't mine. It was like, but it was a pile, and it was like, oh, what would it be like? And I nearly died. My addiction has nearly killed me in all sorts of ways, and it's very sneaky because, it would love to get me back. It's sponsored a lot of people. A lot of people's lives have improved through the fact that, I've been able to carry the message and be of service to a lot of people in recovery. And, I often think that, it sneaks in, it gets you, you just kind of, oh, this feels nice. And it suddenly hits you one day, I'm powerless. I'm just Anyway, so getting away from the topic, which is step 5, my process of understanding what the exact nature of my wrongs was about, is like finding the defects that come up, and the denial, and the way that we act out. Sometimes when you're in the middle of it, it's like, the one thing about staying clean a long time, one thing about staying clean a long time is that you get to the solution quicker. You recognise it, and then you go, oh, right. And then you know what to do, because you've done it before, and sometimes I don't want to do it. I don't, I think, oh, this is too nice, but addiction is very, it's like, oh, look. And I know how impractical something that's going on for me at the moment is, and I'm going to be praying a lot this week, I think. And prayer is a very useful tool in recovery. I know a lot of normal people do it, but for an addict it is a good idea to find a higher power, because it carries us through the steps and guides us. My experience is that I learnt to meditate when I was about 18 months clean, thank you. And that actually helped me through that period of time I was talking about. It was a catalyst for all the relationship stuff, all the stuff that I'd done that I thought was wrong. I've had to forgive myself for so much in recovery, because if I can't forgive myself, how am I going to forgive anyone else? And I don't know whether I'm sharing properly today, but the understanding that I have, the conscious contact with the God of my understanding. I pray every morning. I realised a long time ago that when I pray on my knees, I'm in the shape of a 2, right? So step 2, and put the head down and on my knees, and that shape is like the pupil. They used to have pews in schoolrooms, which were, like church school or something, and they had the thing where you put the book, and then they had the little pad at the bottom when you'd been down on your knees, And I often think that I'm the pupil, God's the teacher, and the God of my understanding is kind, and that sometimes I do get a real kick up the arse for stuff I know I shouldn't be doing. Having said that, the spiritual principles that are applicable to step 4 and 5, the biggest one is courage. And it takes courage to write this stuff, owning it to yourself, we know what we do. We just go there, it's like grass yourself up to yourself and, just own it. And that's what my daughter used to yell at me. She used to go, "Mum, just own it. Why do you always say no?" It's like, oh, well, because I'm an addict. I always say no first, but I get around to yes. And I have to go through that process to get to yes. And yes is it's great because it relieves everything. And step 5 is a stepping stone between, all the wrongs that we've done, and understanding them on a deeper level, that, they've been motivated by the loudspeaker of the disease, which is step 6, with all the defects that just go off and they go, well, I think this is a good idea, don't you? I'll do this today and all. Step 6 awaits, and then you've done a 5. But 5 is, when I left my sponsor, that first step 5 I did, I've done many, I have to say, I've been through the steps a lot, because I'm not well sometimes. That I always know that step 4 and 5 bring about a lot of change, and huge change has taken place. I've got 2 minutes. Huge change has taken place in my life. I can't go into it here, but it's just like miracles and magnificent things you couldn't invent. And it's always like you get that little bit of, are you sure? No, just before a birthday, and I'm coming up to one. My clean date is 1st of April 1989, so I'm coming up to 36, I'm coming up to 37 years, and whoa. It always comes up just before a birthday. It's like, yeah, they call it PMT, pre-medallion trauma or something. But yeah, I am always really grateful. I do a 10-step on a regular basis, and I do the kind of all the negative on one side and all the positive on the other. I always finish on gratitude. I say how many times I've prayed that day or meditated, or what the defects that I was struggling with, and all. I've got a way of doing it, and then I give it all to God on step 11 before I go to sleep, and that's worked for me for a long time. But there are times when I was doing step 12 quite riotously everywhere recently, and then suddenly it was like got this woo, I'm powerless, this awakening to the fact that I am not cured, that I am I still have this disease, but recovery is where we can enjoy our life, if we choose the right thing. So hope you all got something from that, and please keep coming back if you're new, struggling or whatever. Don't pick up the first one. That's what they told me. Whatever happens, do not pick up the first one. And I'm still here. I didn't do that one. Just kept coming back. So thank you for asking me to share.
Thanks, Penny.
Thank you very much, Penny. It's